For best tips for older women after which you will not be able to tear men away from you. What makes a woman truly beautiful as she ages? Some radiate confidence and grace, while others tirelessly chase fleeting trends in an attempt to hold on to youth. But real beauty is not found in expensive skincare routines or fashionable outfits. It is something far deeper. True beauty emerges from a life lived with authenticity, peace, and wisdom. It is reflected in the calm assurance of a woman who knows her worth, the kindness in her eyes, and the strength in her heart. It is about embracing the passage of time, not fearing it. In this story, we will explore the traits that define truly beautiful women, the ones who age with dignity, wisdom, and a quiet confidence that draws others toward them. Before we get started, I'd love it if you'd give this video a like. It helps me keep sharing important lessons. If you're not already subscribed, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new videos. Also, if you like this video, write a 1 in the comments and a 0 if you don't, so I know what can be improved. So, here we go. 1. The courage to follow one's principles. True beauty is not found in the reflection of a mirror, nor is it measured by the standards of youth-obsessed culture. Instead, it is rooted in authenticity, the courage to stand by one's beliefs, even when the world expects otherwise. Women who age gracefully do not chase fleeting trends or seek validation from others. They embrace their values, make decisions with conviction, and live life on their own terms. Take Margaret Lawson, for example. In her younger years, she was what many would call a people pleaser. She dressed the way society dictated, softened her opinions to avoid confrontation, and often bent her own desires to accommodate the expectations of others. She thought that being agreeable and fitting in was the way to be loved and respected. But as she grew older, something changed. She began to see the cracks in this way of living. She noticed how often she swallowed her own thoughts to keep the peace, how many times she had said yes when she longed to say no, and how exhausting it was to mold herself into what others wanted rather than who she truly was. The turning point came when Margaret turned 60. One evening, at a large family gathering, the conversation turned to aging. Her younger relatives exchanged beauty tips, recommending the latest anti-aging creams and cosmetic procedures. Then, her niece turned to her and said, "Aunt Margaret, you should dye your hair. It would take 10 years off your face." Margaret chuckled, running her fingers through her silver strands. "Why would I want to erase the years I've lived?" she asked with a smile. "Each one of these hairs tells a story. A struggle I overcame. A lesson I learned. A moment I cherished. I wouldn't trade them for anything." The room fell silent for a moment before someone changed the topic. But Margaret noticed something. Her words had resonated with a few women in the room, especially those close to her age. Later that evening, her sister pulled her aside and said, "You know, I've been thinking of stopping the hair dye, but I was afraid of what people would say. Maybe it's time I embrace it too." That night, Margaret realized something powerful. When you stop seeking approval and start living for yourself, you become a quiet force of inspiration for others. From that moment on, she made a promise to herself. No more changing her mind to please others. No more apologies for her choices. She would wear the clothes that made her feel comfortable, not what fashion dictated. She would voice her opinions with confidence, without fear of judgment. She would spend her time doing what truly mattered to her, gardening, reading, and traveling, not what society told her a woman her age should be doing. Margaret's transformation didn't go unnoticed. Friends and acquaintances began to see a new glow in her, not one that came from makeup or beauty products, but one that radiated from within. She walked taller, spoke with clarity, and carried herself with an air of quiet confidence. And what was most surprising? As soon as she stopped seeking approval, she found that respect followed naturally. She no longer had to fight to be seen or heard. People listened when she spoke, not because she demanded their attention, but because she had something real to say. Margaret is just one example of the countless women who realize, later in life, that true freedom comes from within. A woman who is unapologetically herself is a woman who commands admiration without ever needing to ask for it. So, If there is one lesson to take from Margaret's journey, it is this: never betray yourself to fit into a mold that was never meant for you. A woman's beauty is not in how well she conforms to expectations, but in how fearlessly she stands by her own truth. 2. A simple life with a rich inner world. In a world that constantly tells us we need more possessions, more achievements, more validation, it is easy to forget that true happiness does not come from material wealth, but from an inner sense of peace. The women who age most beautifully are not those who accumulate the most, but those who have mastered the art of simplicity. They know that the richest life is not one filled with excess, but one filled with meaning. Take Eleanor Adams, for example. At 78, Eleanor lived in a small cottage on the edge of a quiet town. She had no expensive jewelry, no designer clothing, and no extravagant furniture. Her home was decorated with things that truly mattered: handwritten letters from old friends, a bookshelf filled with stories that had shaped her life, and a garden that bloomed with the flowers she had planted with her late husband decades ago. Her neighbors often wondered about her. Some pitied her modest lifestyle, whispering about how she lived so simply despite having worked hard all her life. But Eleanor never felt deprived. In fact, she felt freer than ever. One day, a younger woman from the neighborhood, Olivia, visited Eleanor for tea. Olivia had recently gone through a difficult divorce and felt lost. She confessed, "I don't know who I am without my marriage, my big house, or the lifestyle I had before. It's like I've lost everything that made me, me." Eleanor listened with a gentle smile and then said, "You haven't lost yourself, dear. You've just been measuring life with the wrong things." She took Olivia outside to her garden and pointed to a small wooden bench under a willow tree. "That bench has been here for 20 years. It was my husband's favorite spot. After he passed, I thought about getting rid of it because it reminded me of what I lost. But then, one evening, I sat here and watched the sunset. And I realized what we shared wasn't in the bench. It was in me. The love, the memories, the laughter, they live inside me, not in the things I own." Olivia wiped away a tear, understanding, for the first time, that true wealth is not in possessions, but in the depth of our experiences. Eleanor had learned this lesson long ago. She had once lived in a grand house, had closets full of clothes, and spent money on things she thought would make her happy. But after the sudden loss of her husband, she realized that none of it truly mattered. The most beautiful moments in her life were never about what she owned, but about who she was and how she chose to live. From that day forward, she made a change. She downsized, keeping only what brought her joy. She stopped buying things to impress others and instead spent her time cultivating her inner world. She read, she painted, she walked in nature. She focused on being present in every moment rather than chasing an idea of happiness that had never been real to begin with. And something remarkable happened. She began to glow in a way that no expensive skincare product could ever replicate. There was a quiet radiance about her, an unshakable peace that made people gravitate toward her. Those who visited Eleanor often left feeling lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from their shoulders. They came expecting advice on how to fix their problems, but what they received was something far more valuable, a glimpse into what life could feel like when lived with simplicity and gratitude. Women like Eleanor are proof that true beauty comes from a rich inner world, not an overflowing wardrobe or an extravagant lifestyle. The key to aging with grace is not in holding on to youth, but in letting go of everything that no longer serves you. So, the next time you feel the urge to buy something new to fill an empty space in your life, ask yourself, is it the item I need, or is it the peace that I truly seek? The most beautiful women are not those who have everything, but those who need very little to feel complete. Distancing from unnecessary social ties. As we age, we begin to realize that not all relationships add value to our lives. Some people uplift and inspire us, while others drain our energy, leaving us feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. Wise women understand the importance of choosing their company carefully. They know that true beauty is not in being surrounded by crowds, but in curating meaningful connections, choosing quality over quantity in relationships. Take Marie Curie, one of history's greatest scientists. Many people know her for her groundbreaking work in physics and chemistry, but few realize how deliberately she distanced herself from shallow social circles. Marie wasn't interested in gossip, keeping up appearances, or pleasing people who had no real place in her life. Instead, she poured her energy into deep, meaningful relationships, her children, her closest friends, and the scientific community that shared her passion. Similarly, Anne Harper, a lesser-known but deeply influential writer, built a life of quiet solitude. In her younger years, she was always at the center of social gatherings, afraid that missing out would mean losing relevance. But as she grew older, she realized that many of these friendships were built on convenience rather than real connection. They lacked depth. They drained her spirit. One evening, after leaving yet another dinner party where she felt unseen, and made a decision, she would no longer spend time with people who did not bring her joy, nor would she feel guilty for protecting her peace. She withdrew from the friendships that were built on obligation and instead nurtured those that truly mattered. She spent her days in the company of books, letters from old friends, and the occasional deep conversation with kindred spirits who shared her love for literature and philosophy. At first, people questioned her decision. "Aren't you lonely?" they asked. And simply smiled. "Loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't understand you," she replied. "Peace is being alone but content." She was right. Studies have shown that as people age, meaningful relationships contribute to a healthier and more fulfilling life, while toxic or superficial connections can lead to stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. The happiest older adults are not those who are constantly surrounded by people, but those who have a few deep, nourishing relationships that bring them true joy. The art of letting go. It takes courage to walk away from relationships that no longer serve us. Many women hold on to friendships or family ties out of obligation, guilt, or fear of being alone. But wise women know that letting go is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-love. Consider Evelyn Porter, a retired teacher who spent most of her life giving her time, her energy, and her emotional support to those who needed it. But one day, she noticed a pattern. Many of the people in her life only came to her when they needed something. They didn't check on her well-being, they didn't ask about her dreams or struggles, and they certainly didn't offer the same kindness in return. For years, Evelyn ignored this. She told herself that being a good person meant always being available, always helping, always giving. But one day, after yet another exhausting conversation where she listened and consoled but received nothing in return, she finally asked herself, "Who is pouring into me?" The answer was clear: very few. So, she did something she had never done before. She stepped back. She stopped calling first. She stopped always saying yes. She stopped making space for people who never made space for her. At first, she felt guilty. But something amazing happened. She suddenly had more time and energy for the relationships that truly mattered. The real friends, the family members who genuinely cared, the people who saw her as more than just a source of comfort, but as a person with her own needs and dreams. By removing the unnecessary, she made space for the meaningful. And in doing so, she felt lighter, freer, and more at peace than she had in years. Protecting your energy is a form of beauty. Women who age with grace do not waste their time on relationships that drain them. They surround themselves with people who uplift, support, and inspire them. They are not afraid to set boundaries and say no to interactions that do not serve their well-being. They understand that their energy is sacred and should be spent wisely. If you find yourself holding on to relationships that bring you stress or sadness, ask yourself, do these people make me feel loved and valued? Do they celebrate my successes, or do they diminish them? Do they listen as much as they speak? Do I feel exhausted after spending time with them? If the answers reveal more negativity than positivity, it may be time to step back. Remember, choosing solitude over meaningless connections is not loneliness, it is strength. In the end, a woman who is at peace with herself is never truly alone. She carries the richness of her own thoughts, the love of those who truly matter, and the wisdom to know that true beauty lies not in being liked by many, but in being cherished by a few. Inner richness and confidence. A woman's beauty has never truly been about smooth skin, perfect hair, or youthful features. Yet, so many spend their lives chasing these illusions, only to find that they fade no matter how hard they try to hold onto them. The most beautiful women are not those who desperately seek external validation, but those who radiate confidence from within. They know who they are, and that self-assurance gives them a glow no cosmetic product could ever replicate. Take Grace Matthews, for example. In her younger years, she had been painfully self-conscious. She worried about what people thought of her appearance, whether she was stylish enough, and whether her features were attractive enough to be admired. She spent decades standing in front of mirrors, adjusting, criticizing, and never feeling quite good enough. But everything changed when she turned 65. One morning, as she prepared for an event, she caught herself scrutinizing the fine lines on her face. She sighed, reaching for an expensive anti-aging cream, when suddenly a thought struck her: who was she trying to impress? She had spent her entire life believing her value was tied to how others perceived her, but what had that ever given her? Did her worth decrease because of wrinkles? Did her intelligence, kindness, and wisdom vanish with time? She put the cream down, stepped back from the mirror, and smiled at her reflection for the first time in years. That moment changed her forever. From then on, Grace no longer dressed to impress others, she wore what made her feel good. She no longer followed beauty trends, she embraced her natural features. She stopped apologizing for growing older and instead celebrated the years she had lived. And something remarkable happened: the more she embraced herself, the more radiant she became. Confidence is contagious. The world notices a woman who carries herself with confidence. She walks into a room, not demanding attention but effortlessly drawing it. It's not because of what she wears or how she looks, it's because of how she feels about herself. This was true for Alice Turner, a retired professor who had always been deeply passionate about learning. While many women her age worried about keeping up with the latest beauty trends, Alice devoted herself to expanding her mind, reading, traveling, exploring new ideas. One day, at a gathering, a much younger woman approached Alice and said, "You have this presence about you. It's like you don't care about what anyone thinks, and yet everyone respects you. How do you do it?" Alice smiled and replied, "I stopped needing people's approval a long time ago. That's the secret." She wasn't being dismissive. She was simply telling the truth. The moment a woman stops seeking validation from others is the moment she truly becomes beautiful. When a woman carries herself with confidence, people sense it. They listen when she speaks. They respect her space. They admire her presence. Not because she is the most physically beautiful woman in the room, but because she is the most assured. In the end, the most beautiful women are those who have lived, loved, lost, and still choose to embrace life with an open heart. They do not fear aging, they embrace it, knowing that every year adds another layer to their wisdom, their resilience, and their radiance. So, if you ever find yourself wondering about beauty, remember this: it is not about how you look. It is about how you live. And a woman who lives fully, loves deeply, and walks through life with courage, she will always be truly beautiful.